What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, we're going over my initial 2023 Dynasty rookie rankings. Super excited about this. Of course, we had the NFL draft over the weekend here. I did put out a video last night just kind of going over every quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end that was taken. If you want to check that out, maybe I'll put a link or somewhere on one of these things. But anyways, let's get right into it. I'm going to hop into a screen share. I did put a link in the description as well if you guys want to access these Dynasty rankings. But let's go ahead and I'm just going to kind of go round by round, I think. So we'll kind of just slowly kind of scroll into here. And there's the top 12 or so. And for me, these are standard one quarterback rankings. If you guys are interested in Superflex, just keep scrolling down on this list and you can find those. But I think most people play standard one QB leagues. So for me, the first player taken, and I think in most people's mock drafts, is going to be Bijan Robinson going to Atlanta here. He's just set up for a ton of volume, and we know he was the best player coming into this draft. So it all kind of aligns here for him to be basically a top 5 running back. You think about Najee Harris a couple of years ago when he was a rookie with the Steelers, like he was just walking into guaranteed volume, and it's a much better situation. So I think there's outcomes where Bijan could be the number 1, number 2, number 3 running back in fantasy football right away. So you're guaranteeing, basically, as long as he's healthy, you're guaranteeing top 5 running back production for the next year or two, maybe even longer. So I love Bijan as the first overall pick. If you're in super flex leagues, I suppose it depends on your needs. If you have good running backs and you want a quarterback, go ahead and do it. And then after Bijan, I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. And the reason I'm putting Jahmyr Gibbs here is that number 12 overall pick is a lot of confidence. And then for them to just go and trade DeAndre Swift the next day, or I think it was 2 days later, pretty crazy stuff. You're looking at a backfield of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Montgomery there. He's going to be the primary ball carrier, but man, oh man, they gave Swift 100 carries last year and a ton of targets. I think Gibbs is probably going to eclipse the 100 carries and get even more targets. So I think there's a pretty good ceiling for Jahmyr Gibbs. If I remember correctly, DeAndre Swift was RB21 in full PPR. So we're looking at a spot where, again, it's just kind of like the perfect storm. You see the draft capital investment in him, and then to send Swift away, the Lions love to dink and dunk down the field. Jahmyr Gibbs is a receiver. So if you're in a PPR format, absolutely love Jahmyr Gibbs as the second overall pick. And then my top receiver is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. And this one's difficult because I don't love his outlook for his rookie season. He's going to be stuck behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for targets and opportunities. But who knows? Tyler Lockett's getting up there in age. I would expect Lockett to have at least one more good year, if not another one. So Smith-Njigba requires a little bit of patience, but I see him being their future slot receiver. I see him leading the team in receptions and targets, even over DK Metcalf in the future. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, my number 3 player coming in here. And then I got Anthony Richardson here because I feel really, really good about his situation with the Colts. You got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. You also have Shane Steichen calling plays, which we've known his history with Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert the year before Hurts. Really, really good stuff. And Richardson, we just know he's a freak, man. He's going to run the ball. He's going to run for touchdowns. He's going to have a big arm with big plays downfield. I think the Colts do need more weapons offensively, but you got Michael Pittman Jr. there. You got Josh Downs, who they selected this season. Alec Pierce, that's a decent, trio of wide receivers. I think they have Isaiah McKenzie there as well. And then they got a bunch of good tight ends. I think there's enough there for Richardson to be useful as a passer. But man, oh man, we're collecting those legs. I think that's what you want. To me, he's the QB1 for fantasy football dynasty drafts. And then moving on to, I got 2 receivers here, Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. I like Zay Flowers a lot. I think he was my number 2 ranked receiver coming into this class. And the fit with Baltimore is pretty good. You have Odell Beckham Jr. there and Mark Andrews kind of ahead of him for targets right now. But I think over the next 3-4 years, you're going to see Zay Flowers become just like a perennial, wide receiver, a top 20 wide receiver. I think he's got that game in him, and I think he's going to develop into Lamar Jackson's one of his favorite targets outside of Mark Andrews. So I like Zay Flowers a lot. He does remind me a little bit about like when Marquise Brown played in that offense. I know there was some ups and downs with that, but I think Zay Flowers is a little bit better suited towards Lamar Jackson than Marquise Brown was. And then we got Jordan Addison here. He's going to be the number 2, number 3 target in Minnesota. A couple questions with Addison, of course, is his size and his speed. He's not very big and he's not very fast, but he can get open really quickly from the slot. So you have Justin Jefferson ahead of him, of course, as the leading target man. But then he's also going to have to, compete with T.J. Hawkinson. So I see Addison kind of settling in, maybe to that 100 target range. I have to do my projections yet, but I like Addison. And I guess of all the rookie receivers, Addison's probably got the safest floor year one. So if you're looking for production now, you could take Addison over Flowers or Anthony Richardson if you needed it. I think long term, it's going to be hard for him to ever put together like a wide receiver one season. So I don't really see the ceiling there with him, but I see him being like a really locked in wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, maybe as early as this year. And then we're going to get to the quarterbacks here, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Pick your preference. I think Bryce Young excites me with his legs. The offense has some questions with the playmakers there. They did draft him, Jonathan Mingo, which I like a lot, but Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall Jr., Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst, a decent veteran cast there. So that's why I have Bryce Young ahead of CJ Stroud. And then with Stroud, slightly concerned about the talent around him. He does have Dalton Schultz, who I think he's going to rely on quite a bit as his tight end one. But then you also have a lot of questions at receiver. Nico Collins, John Michie, a couple other guys. Robert Woods is there. Not the most inspiring cast. I think they're going to run the ball and play good defense there. So Bryce Young and CJ Stroud coming in there for me. And then that's kind of the end of like my blue chips here. I think Quentin Johnston's a fun receiver here at number 9. But I have a lot of questions. I mean, he's not a really great separator. He's going to be the number 3 receiver there for Mike Williams, behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And who knows how long Keenan Allen keeps playing. But I love being, attached to Justin Herbert's offense. I think that's one of his best traits coming out of this landing spot area. And I don't know and trust Quentin Johnston enough to make him a high pick. I think Zay Flowers and Addison offer a little bit more production and safety right now. But I like Johnston long term. He could be one of the steals in this first round. And then there's Dalton Kincaid, who, if you need a tight end, he should be the first tight end taken. I think you could take him over Johnston and some of these quarterbacks if you really needed it. He's going to be more of like a slot receiver here. I see him actually being their number 2 in receiving, in receptions, maybe as early as this year, if not next year. So Kincaid, I know he's a tight end, and tight ends don't necessarily, hit for fantasy points right away their rookie season. But Kincaid's a little bit different. He's more of a receiving weapon than your traditional tight end. I doubt we're ever going to see his hand in the dirt very often. So Kincaid's there for me. And then I got Devin Achane and Kendre Miller rounding up my top 12 as running backs. Devin Achane, I love the fit in Miami. He's really fast. You only have Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert ahead of him. So 2 aging running backs. You're going to see Achane sprinkled in. And it seems like every other week, it's either Raheem or Jeff Wilson that's hurt. So war of attrition, I think Achane's a guy that could help you as early as mid-season this year, and maybe be a guy down the stretch that you really want on your fantasy team. And then with Kendre Miller, you got Alvin Kamara probably going to get suspended for at least 4 to 6 games this year. They did sign Jamal Williams, but again, both those guys are 27, 28 years old. I think there's an opportunity where Miller gets fast-tracked right away while Kamara is suspended. And then, if he plays really well, it's going to be hard to put him, back on the shelf. So he's a guy that I think has some value this season, and maybe 2024. He's the guy that gets even more work based on his rookie year. So let's move on to the top, the second round here, starting with Zach Charbonnet. Love the player, hate the fit with Seattle. He's blocked by Kenneth Walker, but Kenneth Walker's more of just like a first and second down runner. Maybe Charbonnet becomes their third down back, and he kind of keeps things fresh for Kenneth Walker. And they want to run the football there. So I like him a lot. But man, it kind of sucks having Kenneth Walker ahead of him. But again, either way, you're probably going to be happy with Charbonnet sitting on your bench at some point, whether if Walker gets hurt or if there's enough floor there for Charbonnet to kind of carve out a low-end RB2, RB3 role. Sam Laporta coming in next for me, tight end for Detroit. Detroit's that offense is going to throw the ball so much. Jared Goff is pretty good with the tight ends, and Laporta was my tight end. He was one of my favorite tight ends coming into this draft, and I think him and Michael Mayer next. If you can't get one of those two, you're probably good on waiting on tight end for a little bit here. But Laporta, to me, in Detroit's offense, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you got questions after that because Jameson Williams he's going to be suspended for 6 games. So there's going to be a need for a number 2 target, which is also why, again, that's another bump up for Jahmyr Gibbs. So both rookies going to be interesting this year. Michael Myers fine in Las Vegas. I don't love the fit there. He's probably not going to have a great rookie year with Austin Hooper and OJ Howard there. So it's kind of like a waste of a first rookie year for Michael Myers, but you never know. Probably a guy that you're going to be happy that you have in a year or two. And then I got a huge wide receiver run. Jonathan Mingo, Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, Tank Dell, Jalen Hyatt, and Josh Downs. Now, I don't think any of these guys are going to be their team's future number one receiver. I like Mingo a lot. He's got Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Terrace Marshall Jr. there, but I don't know if he's an alpha wide receiver. He did draw a lot of comparisons to A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, but I don't think he's there quite yet. I think he's more so like his ceiling is probably a number 2 wide receiver. Same with Jaden Reed, same with Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice with Kansas City and Mahomes, but as long as Travis Kelce's playing well, you're not going to be a huge wide receiver 1 for Kansas City. And they also have been very questionable with their wide receiver selections of late here, whether it's Sky Moore. You also have the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster and signing MVS and letting Tyreek Hill go. I have questions with some of their personnel decisions there. So I don't love Rashee Rice, but he's in the second round. He's a guy you want to collect just because of Mahomes. I skipped over Jaden Reed, but I think he's got a legit chance to be their number 2 receiver right away. He's probably better than Romeo Doubs. He might just, be behind the, the 1 year learning curve that Doubs already got in the offense. So either way, though, you're looking at a number 2, number 3 receiver for Jordan Love. I think he's a guy that if everything goes well this year, he could be a 50, 60 catch player. Really excited about Jaden Reed. Marvin Mims in Denver. He's very interesting. They have a couple older guys ahead of him. He's going to be their number 4 receiver. So his ceiling right now, somewhat murky. You have Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. Those are going to be the 3 guys. But after that, the number 4 spot's up for grabs. KJ Hamler has never been able to stay healthy. Don't trust the Denver Broncos tight ends. So Mims is the guy that probably not going to have a lot of value this rookie season unless there's an injury or they trade one of those guys away, but he can play. He's really, really good, and I can see him fitting into that offense really nicely with Russell Wilson. I like Tank Dell a lot for Houston. Houston's depth chart at receiver is just pretty weak. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Nico Collins, you have Robert Woods, and then John Mechie, who I like a lot too. But Tank Dell can come in there, and maybe he's better than Robert Woods and Nico Collins. We'll see. I'm willing to take a shot on him in the late second round. Jalen Hyatt, I like him a lot, but I don't like him in that Broncos offense, or that I do not like Jalen Hyatt in that New York Giants offense. I don't think they throw the ball deep down well. It's clear that that's what they want to do, but it's tough. He had one good year in college. So there's some questions there. Good evening to Killer, my man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoyed the NFL draft, and hopefully we can find some rookies for you in your upcoming Dynasty drafts. So Hyatt, I have questions on it. I do like the opportunity there. They don't really have a lot of deep down wide receivers besides, is it Darius Slayton still there? So we'll see. I think he's a guy that's going to be pretty boom bust for most of his career if things go well. And then Josh Downs. I was amazed that he fell to the 3rd round, pick number 16. So we shall see. But Josh Downs is a guy that I think can compete for the number 3 duties. It might be Isaiah McKenzie. So maybe rookie year, he's their number 3, number 4 receiver. But you're looking at a guy that can grow with Anthony Richardson and potentially be his number 1 or number 2 receiver in a year or two. And especially if Michael Pittman Jr. leaves elsewhere, I think Josh Downs could be a guy that leads the team in receptions in the future. And how good of a pick is Felix? I was amazed at how far he fell in the NFL draft. I think when I was doing a lot of my mock drafts, he was available in the 2nd round. So it seems like Kansas City hit a tremendous value pick with Uzomah here. And again, me as a Packer fan, I was doing a lot of Packer mocks, and he was there in the 2nd round. And if I didn't take him in the 2nd round, he wasn't there round 3. So I think he fell to the 4th or the 5th round. I know he was a day 3 pick, which just didn't make sense. So fantastic value pick, and he's a guy that probably can be a starter, if not this year, maybe in another year. So I love what Kansas City did in their draft. I thought they had a pretty solid draft. And then where did I leave off? Will Levis. In a standard 1 QB league, Will Levis is a guy that probably not going to get the starting nod right away this year. I think he's a guy that, as long as the Titans are in playoff contention, you're going to see Ryan Tannehill on the field. But as soon as things start to look south, you're going to probably want to see at least 4 games out of Will Levis as a starter, so you know what you got in case you need to draft another quarterback next year. So Levis, he's a patience play. He could be their starter 2024, and hopefully Tennessee isn't winning a lot of games, so you can see Will Levis at some point this year to know what you got. And then my final pick of the second round of dynasty drafts is going to be Rashawn Johnson, the Texas running back here. Chicago Bears have an interesting offseason here. They added Deonta Foreman, did not sign David Montgomery back. So they have Foreman and Khalil Herbert going into the draft. And then they signed this kind of do-it-all running back, Rashawn Johnson, who I liked a lot. I think I had him as my RB5 coming into the class. I like the long-term look of Johnson. I think he's more of a 2024 type starter guy. They're going to use Herbert. They're going to use Deonta Foreman. They paid Foreman a little bit of money to be there. So Rashawn Johnson's rookie year might not be super flashy, but man, I could see him earning more work as the season progresses. And if you have patience, 2024 might be the year Rashawn Johnson starts to take over that backfield. But let's move into the third round of dynasty drafts here. Let's see. There's a huge drop off in talent after I think Rashawn Johnson here. Tajay Spears is nice. His knees do concern the hell out of me. Like, not having an ACL in one of the knees is pretty freaky. I don't see him having a long shelf life in the NFL. I think he can be really, really good really quickly. But one, he's behind Derrick Henry. You also have Hassan Haskins, who they drafted last year, to deal with. And I just don't think that Titans offense is going to be very good. Like, they only have Traylon Burks and Chigo Okonkwo to throw the ball to. So Spears, he's a good pass catcher. He could be their number 3, number 4 receiver in terms of receptions this year. So I like Spears, but I'm not aggressively trying to get him on my roster. I just don't think the shelf life is very long for him. Tank Bigsby is a nice backup running back for the Jags and Travis Etienne. I don't expect him to be much of a receiver, but who knows? He can be a guy that reminds me of like Damian Harris, where he's just a banger, first and second down, short yardage kind of guy, rack up some touchdowns. So he's more of an insurance policy for your Etienne owners. And then here's another, if you can't get the top tight ends, Kincaid, Laporta, or Michael Mayer, you're looking at Luke Musgrave, who could be the really fun tight end for Green Bay. Jordan Love really needs a tight end. If you go back and watch his Utah State film, he was pretty good with the tight end position. So I think Green Bay is going to have a lot of heavy 2 tight end sets this year. Musgrave's going to be a guy that I think you're going to see play pretty well with Jordan Love. I got another little receiver run here of Cedric Tillman, Michael Wilson, Charlie Jones, and Tyler Scott. I like Tillman's athleticism. I do not like the fit. I mean, he's behind Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Tillman's going to slide into that number 4, and for the foreseeable future, I don't really see a spot where he's going to step into a starting role. So he's a good player. Didn't like the landing spot for fantasy football. I do like the landing spot for Michael Wilson, though, in Arizona. After Marquise Brown, after DeAndre Hopkins, who knows, he could still get traded yet. We don't know where he's going to be. And then you have Rondale Moore, who I'm not really sold on. I think Michael Wilson can compete in and he could be the future DeAndre Hopkins replacement on the outside. He's worth a hold. I think you have to be patient with him till 2024. Charlie Jones, another interesting guy here because he's tied to Joe Burrow in that Cincinnati Bengals offense. Of course, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Hopefully Higgins gets re-signed there. But Tyler Boyd, I think this might be his last year there. Charlie Jones could be a guy that steps into the number 3 receiver role for the Bengals starting next year. And then Tyler Scott, just because I can't believe he fell to the 4th round. I thought he was a late second, early 3rd round value. And Cincinnati has had some pretty productive receivers in the past. Going to Chicago, I know there's DJ Moore. I know there is – I don't care about Chase Claypool. Darnell Mooney's nice, but I could potentially see Tyler Scott settling into the number 3 receiver role for Justin Fields, even though they don't throw the ball a lot. Hendon Hooker, a good sleeper here. Probably not going to play this year. Maybe by 2024, if things go bad for Detroit, maybe they're looking at Hooker as being their starter for next year. But either way, you're looking at a little bit of a patient wait with Hendon Hooker. And then you got some running backs here. Israel Abanikanda from Pittsburgh. Really interesting. There were some notes that the Jets were actively trying to go get Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft class. They might have even taken him at 15 overall, which to me raises an eyebrow about Breece Hall's health. Is he going to be ready to go right away? I usually don't like to take running backs with their first year back from a major knee injury So we might see a Conda a little bit more used this year than normal, especially behind Breece Hall. But I think he's a guy that you want to put on your bench. If anything happens to Breece Hall, um, injury wise, you have probably the next man up. And if they ease Breece Hall back in, or if he's not ready week 1, you might have a starter. So keep an eye on Conda. Chase Brown, I like him out of Illinois. Not sure about his pass protection. But Joe Mixon's kind of souring on a lot of people. He kind of regressed last year in a lot of metrics. They let go of Samaje Perine, so the number 2 spot is open in Cincinnati. So keep an eye on Chase Brown and then Zach Evans, just because Cam Akers is there, but they really don't have a lot of good running backs outside of Akers. So Evans could be the number 2 coming into the year, could be their short yardage and kind of grinder type running back. And then I'm going to end the round 3 with Tucker Kraft. Out of Green Bay here. I think Green Bay is going to move towards a lot of 2 tight end sets. Last year, they did use Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, and Josiah DeGuara a lot. And if anything, again, with Luke Musgrave, really good player. He's coming off a pretty bad injury. If he were to get injured again, we're all going to be going to the waiver wire for Tucker Kraft. So he's a guy that is probably just nice to hold on our bench for now. And then let's finish up with the 4th round a little bit quickly here. Luke Schoonmaker, Darnell Washington, continue to grab tight ends in the 4th round if you can. Some receivers here worth a shot. Looks like I have Michael Wilson listed twice. I'll have to update that. But Justin Shorter and Dontavian Wicks, both guys that could compete for number 4 wide receiver spots in their teams. And then I'm going to finish up with some running backs: Eric Gray, Evan Hall, Chris Rodriguez, Deuce Vaughn, Dwayne McBride, Lou Nichols, and Kenny McIntosh. Running backs are the best pick you can make in the 4th and 3rd rounds of your dynasty draft. So as long as these guys are available here, I like them quite a bit. And that's pretty much it. You guys can look and see I have gone all the way down to 60 here. I'm going to update that and make sure Michael Wilson's not listed twice. But I did go 60 deep. And then with the super flex, you guys can check that out as well. But that's going to do it for me. Had a lot of fun making these rankings. And these are just my preliminary rankings. I have a lot more tinkering with these to go. I made these this morning. I'll probably update them maybe once a week going forward, as we start to get more news and more information on these players. But either way, thank you for your time. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.